Hello and welcome to the People Do That podcast.
On this podcast, we're going to talk to people that do epic shit with their lives.
These are people that are good at life. We will talk to life coaches, sports broadcasters, fitness experts, Marine special ops, and even someone who became a doctor after the age of 50. Because you know what?
People do that.
People do that?
People do that.
Well, now give me just a little bit, I don't need a lot. Open up your heart, show me what you got. The sugar tastes sweet, coffee in the pot. Now give me just a little bit, just a little bit. Give me just, yeah, now.
So today's the first official day I've turned reading bios over to Nick. So he's much better at it.
I made it to the big boys.
And talk about overachiever. I always ask people for their bios like in bullet point, and he wrote it exactly as I would say it. So all I did is basically copy and paste it. So
I mean, to be
thank you for doing.
fair, I let AI help.
I knew it.
Did ChatGPT write this?
A little bit, yeah.
All right, lead us off, Nick.
All right, fellas, talk about people do that. This guy does this or that, we can say. Meet our friend Ryan Jacobs. From memorizing all of the presidents as a preschooler to consuming the entire space shelf in the school library, Ryan had an early hunger for knowledge, and unfortunately for his parents, they did not have the convenience of Google to answer his questions. He grew up loving and obsessing over strategy, whether it was on the golf course, a chessboard, or a poker table. By middle school, Ryan was trading in the stock market, hinting at a path in investments in the future. Ryan went on to the University of Arizona, majoring in marketing, but snuck into programming classes for fun. After joining the workforce for a little over a year, he quickly realized he didn't make a very good employee. Ryan proceeded to co-found Rad Software at the age of 23 to help businesses leverage technology to enhance their competitive advantage. Today, Rad employs over 30 individuals and partners with businesses across a wide range of industries, leveraging technology and artificial intelligence to accelerate growth. Off the clock, Ryan's a family man with 2 kids that are 5 and 4, and a wife he believes was delivered to him by the universe's Amazon, which we're definitely going to talk about.
Yes.
He's a philosopher at heart, an avid reader delving into anything from business best practices to quantum physics. Guilty pleasures include, but not limited to, finding loopholes in taxes, love that. Mexican food, love that. Talking about his Tesla and quoting movie lines, love that. Often to his wife's annoyance. Did he do some research?
On us.
Oh my God. Often to his wife's annoyance. In 2022, he entered into business acquisitions, acquiring an education company. Ryan's latest fascination, artificial intelligence. Nowadays, his car rides to work are spent in deep conversation with AI, exploring the limitless possibilities. Meet Ryan Jacobs, strategist, entrepreneur, and AI enthusiast. Buckle up. It's just getting started. I don't even know what half of those words mean.
Let's go.
So we're going to do AI for dummies here.
right in.
Yeah.
We need that. Like sometimes it's the Michael Scott from The Office when I talk to Ryan. It's like, talk to me like I'm in 5th grade. Like,
That's right.
And then it's like, okay, talk to me like I'm in 2nd grade. Like dumb it down even more.
But so software, isn't it one of those things where easy isn't easy?
It's absolutely true. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like, I feel like in the software world, what it makes really good software is like if you can make it as easy as possible for the user, but there's all these background process happening in the background and it's like super complicated, and make it super simple for anyone to use. That's where it's like really good software is made, where like you've seen all the old pieces of software that have like every single feature right in front of you and you have no idea how to do anything, but you can do everything.
Right.
Just making something super simple, very difficult to do.
I like telling my kids, like, if there's something that doesn't work, like my car or my phone or whatever, it's not very intuitive. And they're like, intuitive to who? Like most normal people, it's very intuitive for. You don't understand anything about anything, so it's challenging for you.
I'd like to call it clumsy.
Yeah, it's a little
clumsy.
It's kind of clumsy, quirky.
Kludgy.
Yes.
A little kludgy.
Yes.
It's on me.
But so Ryan and I are in a group called Vistage together. We hang out. We got to talk, and the thing about him, and I texted this to Brian, he is great at tech, understands all this technology, but he's also a really great guy and very engaging, very like great social skills. So it's kind of a unicorn. No offense to some of my friends that are great at tech and not as social, but he's just easy to talk to. And sometimes we're having conversations about just what he does or the future of technology. And it kind of can be scary. It can also be exciting depending on how you look at it. We're at the age, or like, I think a lot of what he talks about scares the shit out of our parents. And younger people are super excited about it. Our group is kind of in the middle. We're like, I don't know. I don't totally understand that, but that seems cool. And so I just wanted to have him on and kind of just talk about.
Well, because we were the last generation to not grow up with technology.
Right.
And then when we got to college, they were like, there's an email. So imagine writing a letter or typing a letter on your brother word processor
Yes.
and sending it to your friend. You could now type that on a computer and hit the submit button or send button, and they're going to get it electronically in their computer. Yeah. My first day at Scottsdale Community College, I was introduced to my email address, which was nicholas.farr@scc.edu. And I immediately called my friend Frank when I got home because I didn't have a cell phone, and he was at the University of Illinois. And I said, "Do you have one of these .edu things?" And he was like, "Yes." And I go, "All right, tomorrow at like 10, be at your .edu, and I'm gonna send you." I just the first email I ever said like, "Sup, fool."
That was your first email ever?
It works.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the inventor of email wanted you to.
Yeah.
That's the use case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Ryan, let's do this.
No.
It's 20 years from now.
We're getting into this.
Oh.
It's 20 years
it.
from right now.
Oh my goodness.
One of the sales strategies that I've always employed is start with the end in mind, and not that 20 years is the end for us, but we are going to be old fuckers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What is the thing? Remember, it's 20 years. What is the thing that would be the number one topic of conversation when talking about technology?
2044.
20.
Let me just, I'll buy him some time. So I am going to be 68 at that time.
Good news. My driver's license will still be valid
In Arizona. That's right.
That's
Good
good.
news.
Yes, that's
Good
great
news.
news. We'll be getting into movies for cheaper. Yes. Senior
And you can get
discount.
as close as that mic as you want, by the way. Yeah. So don't feel like you got to be away.
Yes.
That's right.
I would say, because today, one of the biggest topics that everyone has is they complain about technology. So I have a feeling we will still be doing that, but in totally different ways. So you'll be complaining about your robot doing something that you didn't want them to be doing, or AI messed up on your last email that you should have been writing, but it did it for you instead, things like that. I think that will still be the common tech talk. I think the most interesting thing, though, when you start thinking about 20 years out, is that this is a moment in time where almost no one can predict what 20 years is going to look like.
Yeah.
Where 20 years ago, you might have a decent guess. Like when the Jetsons came out, there was some decent guesses, or Star Trek, there's decent guesses. Now it's very hard to guess because AI especially is moving at a pace that is ridiculous. It's the fastest moving technology that anyone's ever seen. And a lot of people, for example, the compute power for AI is doubling every 6 months, which is insane if you think about that. And
Explain what compute power is.
yeah, so in terms of the amount of processing that's being added to AI servers is doubling every 6 months. So basically the ability for any AI model to start processing whatever it needs to be doing, it's adding more and more power. For example, our brains, they have a compute power capacity. I think it's 3 watts or something like that. But the amount that's being added across the world right now is adding more and more power to AI, and it'll be able to do more and more things as it accelerates at this pace. So I think the scary thing is that this is going to go at this level exponential where we can't even see what it's going to happen, because we look at it in a linear way. That's how we often see the future. It's okay, this is how our life is, and most likely this is what's going to look like in the future, just a little changes here and there. It's going to be exponential, and so it's very hard to predict what is going to happen. To me, I'm optimistic about it. I see a lot of ways that could benefit, but I could also understand the scary parts of it. There are some scary things, and the world's going to look a lot different. And 20 years, it'll look a lot different, but I can't even tell you 100 years. Like that's gonna be totally different.
Yeah, because I think about technology. I just think about like the cell phone and like, oh, okay, a new one's coming out 2 years from now, and then it was a year from now. Now it's 6 months. Every the updates are coming like that, right? And you're saying what you're saying, like the ability to double that power in every 6 months, and the ability, just mind blowing.
And even with AI, like that's a thing. Like whenever I hear AI, I cringe because I'm like, the idea of like robots taking over the world comes into my mind. Like we're not gonna have to do anything. And but then you start tinkering a little with Chat GPT, and you're like, wait a minute, this is amazing, and this is incredible, and this can really help me do a lot of things. It's not gonna like take over me at this point, maybe in 6 months or 12 months, but what it can do, like when you're trying to write an email and you can't, Julie was working on a mission statement for a new project she's working on. And I'm like, just tell me the bullet points. And like within seconds, the most beautiful, eloquent mission statement came out. I'm like, she doesn't need me anymore. She doesn't need me for anything. I was the writer. That was it.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is like a lot of people go down that road where it's like AI is going to take over the world and it's going to replace jobs. And not to say that there could be a future that happens, but I think right now in the foreseeable future, the exciting thing is the combination of human and AI and be able to collaborate together. Because it's kind of like, the way I see it is that we're going to have to train every employee to learn how to be a boss. So they are going to have a team of AI agents that they can interact with and do these actions, and it's like they have to manage them and give them set expectations. They have to give clear and concise directions, and then they get this result. And that's how we have to start training employees to work with that, because I feel like that's a big topic with AI, is like, is this going to replace my job? But if you can train them to manage AI and work together, that's where I think there's a lot of.
Because you still need the content. You still need the light bulb. You need the idea, right?
Yeah.
Like the writer's strike. There was a big deal about in the Writers Guild about, I could just tell them to write my screenplay for me, right?
Sure.
And but you still need the concept. You still need the idea. So that's always there. That at least the human element. That's my safety valve.
Yeah,
but
I can't be completely replaced, right?
Yeah.
But they're gonna make it so much better than what I made.
Yeah.
right?
But in a lot of businesses, Brian, though, that's a more of a creative thing in a lot of businesses that are just, okay, why are we opening mail and then putting it on a cart and then putting it over here and then putting it in this inner office thing and then sending it out? Like their mail that's coming in physical, they're scanning this stuff and then a bot is reading the mail and going, that's for that person. And it's an invoice, and it's above their threshold, so it actually needs to go to this person to approve it, and it's just being routed to those people to do it. Like, and that's just once it goes into the machine. So I don't need a different idea about that.
Right.
I also don't need the 3 people in between the last person that just has to say yes. So those 3 people, you go.
You're going
Right.
Okay.
So that's
All right.
where we're seeing it now. Is like we're being asked to because we store more paper. My company stores more paper than any company in the world. So we have 450 million cartons of paper. Wow. And now clients are starting to tell us, what's on that paper? Can I help? Will it help me underwrite my insurance policies better?
Yep.
Is the research that we've done at Kaiser Permanente, the largest health institution in the world, all the cancer research that we've done, if we scanned all of that stuff in and had these bots start reading it, this AR start reading it, can we then start figuring out if there is an actual cure based on diagnosis and research and studies and this? Like, that's what they're asking now. But it does take someone, a researcher at Kaiser, to go, would that help us?
Right.
Right?
But it doesn't take
you
the
still
other
have
7
that person
people.
that needs to say it. But within normal business processes, I don't know if you're seeing this. Within business, they're going, how do I get 4 or 5 people out of that process?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's like these stages that we've seen where, in the past decade, software has become a big thing where we've created all these automations. We're coming into these processes that we're seeing where there's 4 people touching it and it's moving through a chain where now, hey, we can actually build software to automate that entire thing. And that cuts down on a lot of costs and obviously can reduce prices or increase profit margins. But now there's this second phase where we're starting to roll out AI, and it's almost like automation of automation. So it's this second layer, which is hard to wrap your mind around.
It is.
And I think an interesting thing is like the example you give, like with, millions and millions of documents. There used to be a point where the only way you could, if you did scan it, you'd have to search for a keyword, and hopefully it's the right keyword. Right. And that's what you're looking for inside the data. Now with AI, it's like having an intelligent human reading all the documents at once and being able to be, okay, I know what you're looking for. Yeah. I'm not going to look for that specific search term, but I have a good sense of what you're looking for. Yeah. And I'm going to read all of it instantaneously and then give you an answer
and comprehend it.
Are you are you calling that Gen AI? Because that's what people around me are calling it.
AI,
yeah. So generative, right?
Generative.
I come up with. Can we just say Gen AI?
Gen AI.
Yeah.
They call it Gen AI.
Yeah. So that's like another example is if you're a Fortune 500 company and you have 50,000 contracts stored in boxes.
Right.
And you go, I don't know the termination date of any of those contracts. Yeah. If you just scan those 50,000 files in, you then just ask it, what's my termination date for the Sombreros contract? And it just goes,
there it is.
You don't need it. You don't need to go to the microfiche anymore.
Or the film thing, or you're like scrolling through.
So just because I'm fortunate that I work in a business that like a lot of people interact, it's just like a normal business that everybody goes to eat. Like, what could Sombreros look like in 20 years? Well, you keep using that one, and it might be sooner. Like when someone pulls up to a drive-through, how is that process going to be different? Hopefully their cars are flying by then because Jetsons. But if they're still driving,
naturally,
what does a drive-through experience look like?
In your levitating drive-through?
Yeah. I mean, it could be very likely that every single drive-through you will not be talking to a person. You'll be talking to an AI personality that sounds like a person. It's the most friendly person you've ever met, and is like the best person you could possibly have taking your order. That's this AI personality, and it knows everything possible about the menu. Maybe you can ask how many calories are in the number 2. It would know. Things like that.
Shit, we don't want that to get out. Block, abort.
Or you could tell it, what's your body mass index?
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
Damn.
We'll recommend
Yeah.
But calories, does something have dairy in it? It could ask about.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But but also couldn't it, if you said, listen, I'm on keto, what's the best thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It'll tell you.
Yeah. You could, the way I see it is, there's a lot of different ways that people are implementing AI. Some people are using open AI, some of them are using, Google's Bard, but there's also like open source where you can kind of train your own model. And I see that is gonna be the big movement for all these individual companies, where they could bring in their own model, train it with all the data that they have, everything with all their recipes, and maybe you have like certain things like, hey, don't give out our recipes, like
right.
that is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but it knows everything, all the calories or sugar or whatever that goes into it, and then it also has a general sense of information like what's the keto diet and how what type of meals would apply to that. So I think that it definitely could be a thing. I think McDonald's is already trying that.
They're experimenting
and Wendy's,
with it,
yeah. And I think the interesting thing is, AI has been around for a while. It's all the craze right now. But the reason why it's popular now is the introducing of a large language model, an LLM. I'm not sure if the way to look at it is what was recently introduced and made popular with ChatGPT and OpenAI is they made a way for you to talk to AI. So before, the only way you could utilize AI is you had to be able to program or know how to set it up.
Right.
Now they can make it where any person can talk a normal language and it can understand you and then talk back. So basically we created a front end for you to be able to communicate. And that's what we introduced. I think like things like like the computer or the cell phone, that was creating a GUI, an interface for anybody to interact with, creating really great software, simple software that creates a GUI for any person.
No one knows what GUI is. No one knows what GUI is.
A front end, like basically you can hit a button instead of typing in code for something to process, right? Okay. So you can go on your cell phone, you could type in your phone number and or call somebody right away versus having to program that in and send that out. So these type of steps, like the introduction of the computer, introduction of the cell phone, created all sorts of opportunities. That's what the LLM has done, is it's created this front end so everyone can interact with AI.
Yeah.
And with that, AI is going to learn a lot faster because everyone's interacting with it, which pretty
By the way, like predicting where sickness is going to be because people are going into the language model and saying, I have a runny nose or I have a really bad headache and my neck is hurt, right? And if enough people do that and they can do it by geography, they could start predicting where the next sickness is coming from, where the viruses are, the bacteria is, like all of this other stuff is coming down the road. So that's actually my next question is, what's the best thing about it right now and what's the worst thing?
There you go.
Oh, great question. I would say the best part for me is like, because I'm using it every single day. So I use it as a bouncing board. So like to me, like I like to talk out ideas or decisions I'm trying to make. So what I like to do is I like to utilize AI. Instead of me calling up somebody and be like, hey, can I borrow 10 minutes of your time? I want to go through this thing. I could go on to AI, or we have our own kind of chat GPT in a way. But essentially I could say, hey, I want you to act as, my devil's advocate, or I want you to be a lawyer, or I want you to be a therapist, or whatever I want you to be, embody that. And then I could give my situation and we can have a whole conversation back and forth. And I could do that on my own time without having to.
Don't you do that on your way to work every day?
All the time. That's
Just talk to your Tesla?
It talks about Tesla. It talks back.
Yeah.
That's exactly like you could have it where it has a voice and you just have a conversation. So it literally, like I'll propose, oftentimes when I'm driving into work, I'm like thinking about some issue or something I need to do, and I'll just have a conversation about it with them and be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Can you think of any holes in my logic? And it like might list out 3 things. I was like, oh, I didn't think of that. I should think about that, or come up with a solution for that. How can we do that? And it'll help me through those different things. And honestly, it has been huge for me personally. Wow. I feel like a lot of people could be using it like that. Whether, sometimes there was one point I used it as a therapist where like, I don't know what it is. I'm like feeling down and like, what can I do about this?
Yeah.
And like, it offers advice of how to deal with it.
Wow.
Your Tesla starts giving you a back massage.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, it's going to
okay,
be
Ryan.
okay.
Pull into Babes or Dream Palace. What the fuck?
Thought you might
Cart.
like this.
So is that the best thing?
To me, that's the best thing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing right now?
Yeah. The worst thing I think is misunderstanding in terms of when you are talking with AI, you are feeding it data. So not knowing where exactly that data is going could be a really bad thing that's happening right now. Luckily, like, for example, OpenAI, Google, they say that they're not saving your data, that's not being put in some place, but it could be learning from your data. And you don't know exactly how that could come out.
That's got to be the biggest fear, right? That's for the generation.
That's the biggest fear I see. A lot of business owners talk about that. Yeah. They're worried about, I don't want to get on ChatGPT. Like a lot of the big companies ban ChatGPT. Like Google, you don't have ChatGPT. They have their own, luckily, but like there's a lot of big companies that have banned ChatGPT because they're worried that their employees are going to use it and that data gets out somehow. Like, for example, some random, competitor could be like, hey, what was the revenue of this department at this company? And maybe an employee said that and it learned from that. So I think that's the thing we have to be really careful with. And I think getting even deeper in terms of the data we're feeding it is that we've had a problem politically, socially, where the truth has become more and more harder to grasp.
Yes.
It's more subjective, and it's also, you don't know what to believe. I think with AI, it could enhance it. It could light a fire off that. It'll help in a lot of ways, but in other ways, if you're feeding it non-truthful things, it'll start learning that. It won't be able to decipher that, oh, this is not true. It'll build off of that and start making judgments.
Just like us.
Just like us.
Yeah, right,
just
yeah.
like
Yeah.
a human.
Yeah.
This is
I don't have-
trained to
Yeah.
act like a human at scale.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
that.
It's
Wow.
like all
And then the
positive
algorithm will feed it to you as you start believing whatever that thing is. Then the algorithm is reading and going, you watch that video almost till its end. How about another one that's
You
like
must like
that?
it.
Yeah.
You
And then
must
how
like
about
it.
another one that's like that?
It's going to keep telling you the same story.
And it's going to tell you the same story. And that's when you end up going to a rally and someone says JFK's not dead.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Just keep feeding the conspiracy theory because there a lot of people think that's truth. So if you teach an AI model that this is the truth, this conspiracy theory is a thing, and then that starts coming out in all different ways of other people utilizing it, you have no idea the implications of something like that.
I probably should have like paid more attention when you gave this warning once when we talked. But there was something you said that you're like, if you're going to install it on a separate laptop than your personal.
Oh,
Because, and I don't know what it was, and I haven't installed anything, but I'm like, that freaked me out.
God mode. That's a whole other thing.
What is that?
It's called God mode.
God mode.
Yeah. So essentially, it's like taking ChatGPT and putting it on your local computer and giving it the ability to access everything on the computer. So all your files, all your passwords, things like that. So that's a whole other...
Which could be good for a lot of reasons to give it that freedom.
You do a lot with it, but it also, you want to limit what it has, what capacity it has with that. But that's the separate computer.
Like you say, bringing that AI into your world to grab that knowledge, great. But the fear is what's going out, right?
Right.
So you can bring it in and can kind of control it,
yeah.
like all of your finances, financial, whatever, within the home, or again, expiration dates and termination dates and all that stuff. But yeah, it's the idea of what's going out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because as a human, I can still filter what's coming in, right?
Yeah.
They might read it off and say this, and this, and come on, I don't believe that, or shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, but you
Have you guys used it at all? Have you, Brian? Have you used
very little?
Have you
I have and more frequent recently.
Chat GPT?
ChatGPT. I just started messing around with it because a friend sent me Jared Conti, our good friend, sent us an article, and he asked ChatGPT, like, write an article about the 5 of us that went to high school together and make it like a story in the Renaissance times. Yeah. Nice. And it was hilarious, and it was amazing, and it was so true, and it was satirical. And so that's when I got on it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Yeah. And but even like my niece had to write a letter to somebody that she didn't want to write the other day, and I'm like, here, just send this. And in 2 minutes, or less than that, 1 second, this 1 second, I sent her a text of like, just send this. And it was funny, and it was spicy, and it was hilarious, and it was
like,
so,
how'd you do that?
yeah, she's like, okay. And so I've had a few things. And then, like I said, but I haven't, like, I know, like, you can do something like, hey, I want to go to Europe for 2 weeks, plan my whole itinerary, and it can just hotels, activities. I mean,
there you go.
Yeah.
So, like, but I haven't got to that level. What about you?
Yeah. More for food.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Like recommending restaurants? Or
no, not restaurants. So I cook in
recipes.
in my free time, and so the honest truth is that I will announce here to everyone in the room is when I represented Isabel's at the last Great American Seafood Cook-Off.
Yep.
The recipe was written by ChatGPT.
Wow.
And
Fourth place, ChatGPT.
Bitch,
Step
what
it
up?
up. Let's go.
gang and shit.
Maybe the next version.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Put it on God
and the
mode
truth
next
is,
time.
And the truth is that Robert did it, and so we're going back and forth on text, and like you said, right? I'm going. I reached out to the people that I trust about food, right? My brother-in-law is who I trust about food, and his wife. Like those are my 2 food confidants.
Right.
And I was like, we got to do something that's fun because we drink during the competition, and I don't want it to be that labor intensive, and I don't want to stress out because it's only an hour. And I go, so we need something easy but spicy that represents Arizona, that has seafood, which is weird. And then all of a sudden, I just get this gigantic text, and it's like, how about a Southwest style chorizo bouillabaisse with scallops and shrimp? And I'm like, you fucking ChatGPT.
You genius.
Yeah. And then he's like, of course I did. And then I'm like, okay. I don't want it with this, but ask it to make it spicy or whatever. And then it'll just go, sure, no problem. Here's your spicier version of the Southwestern style chorizo seafood bouillabaisse, right?
Yeah.
So we iterated for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And got down to that's executable in about 40 minutes.
Right.
We can get those ingredients. We understand how to do what it is saying to do. Copy, paste, print, done.
Yeah.
And that's how we did it.
Wow. That's
It's
amazing.
incredible.
But by the way, you could also, I know that you struggle with what are you going to make for dinner, right? You get the food services or whatever.
Yep.
I've been doing this because during the week I try to not eat like an asshole. I go, give me.
That's the diet I'm
Yeah.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Try not to eat like an asshole.
I'm not on a diet. It's called just don't be an asshole.
Yes. Good word to live by.
And so I go on there and I put 5 ingredients or less, keto friendly, that I'm not going to be hungry later. How about this? And I go, no salmon this week. And then it goes, sure. And it takes the salmon out and then it puts this in. And then you go, can you put that in a grocery list for me? Here's your grocery list. Can you then write out the instructions for every recipe and with the approximate amount of time that it's going to take me so that I know how much time I have to spend after work doing it? It's just literally 1 minute and it's all done.
Those are the best use cases. I feel like a lot of people, when they first start using it, they don't have those in-depth conversations, and because you get the best results when you're iterating with it. You know, like some people are like, you know, what's the capital of Sweden? And it's like, yeah, I guess that's right.
I knew
This
it.
is Google. What the-
Right.
Yeah, that's
You know, like, but if you start having the conversation, that's where you get really, really powerful like use cases, and you can have like the best possible results that you never even thought was possible.
So what's the conversation that you've had where you left it and you're like, holy shit. Like,
Oh man,
It takes a lot to get him that way.
I've got countless. I think when I first started doing it in the car, like having that conversation with it, it was like, this is crazy that it just figured out this complicated issue and how to navigate this situation. I've had scenarios where people like text me something. I'm like, I have no idea how to respond to this. I know who does.
so what do you say? What you say? I received a text that I don't know how to respond to, and this is what it says.
So I've even created some automations with that. So what I've done is I've created my own like ChatGPT model that knows how I talk. So it like I gave it a bunch of example text messages and how I typically talk.
Jesus.
And then so it already has that context. I don't have to explain that anymore.
Yeah.
And I could just be like, hey, I just got this text. I want to respond, you know, with a joke, but also be really sincere about whatever it is.
But I also don't want to go golfing.
Yes,
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Come up
So-
with a really good excuse.
Yes.
So Tim, how did you get Ryan here? Did you text him?
Yes.
And was it him responding?
I'm questioning that now. Yes. He just said K. All right. Just said K.
Yeah. No, the AI, he fed it into the AI and it said, sounds like a great business opportunity as they have over 10,000 listens
Yes.
across several platforms.
Yes. You should do this, Ryan.
Let's roll back a little bit. We can jump right into the AI stuff. Go back to starting a software company, and it sounds like you were a curious young man growing up, like always looking for information and feeding all this stuff. How did it kind of tunnel into software in the
Yeah,
business?
I mean, growing up, I was one of those weird kids that I actually dreamed about being an entrepreneur. Like that was my thing. Like, you know, a lot of people want to be a firefighter or, you know, a doctor. I never wanted to be any of those things. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I like would consume knowledge all the time. Like I loved reading. That was my go-to for everything. And when I couldn't get the answer for something, it really frustrated me. That was all. Like I really didn't like that.
gravitate to math. It sounded like the finances and stuff like that.
I did, but I also really liked like creative things. Like I like did a lot of drawing growing up. I loved that, and I loved like strategy. Like chess was. I loved chess and be able to like all the different options and going about that, and you know, had my fair share of video games too. You know, like creative
Horrible
things.
athlete, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was an amazing athlete. I did play golf.
All right.
I
He's
So-
a Notre Dame prep grad.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Because
sure.
usually what you just said equals also didn't want anything to do with sports.
Yeah, I will say I didn't watch a lot of sports. I was more on like the Science Channel sort of stuff. But I loved playing sports. Like I played on the basketball team. I did golf. I wanted to do football. My mom didn't want me to do that, so I didn't do that. But so I try to be a little rounded, but I was definitely kind of, you could call me a nerd. That was definitely.
Yeah, but I don't
he's
know.
not-
I don't
he's
agree.
not- he's
I don't
not a
agree.
nerd.
I know a lot of them. I know
You
a
should
lot
see
of
his
them.
wife. He's not a nerd. Then he went down to U of A, and anytime somebody goes to U of A, and everyone knows I'm a big ASU guy, they're like, "Oh, U of A," but like the fact that how smart he is. Like I remember, I think I've told you guys this when Julie, my wife, had to get a surgery years back, and it was a serious surgery, and the doctor comes in and he's got the like, you know, the scrubs on and the do-rag, and he's talking to Julie about the surgery, and he's got a U of A do-rag on. And like, rather than be mad at that, I'm like, if he came in and he had an ASU do-rag, I'd be like, get the hell out. Who's the next surgeon? Get somebody on call. You are not cutting my wife open. So anyways, yeah, like Kevin, our CFO here, is a U of A guy, but like the fact that, I don't know, he's just very intellectual, but also very easy to have a conversation with. So it's not like he's just like this book smart, don't want to talk to anybody. He's like that unicorn.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't have invited him. You would have been like, man, this guy's brilliant, but I think he's going to clam up.
That's going to be a long hour on the podcast.
Yeah. What's the
Yes and no answers.
Yes. Compute.
Yeah, or like, I mean, when you just see, so I have a few other questions. When you see Elon talk,
Yeah.
like, what do you think? Are you like, oh God?
So I will say, I mean, I definitely find it cringeworthy for sure, but I think what he's saying, I actually agree with a lot of the time. Like, he does have some crazy things he puts out there, don't get me wrong, and the way he says it, I wouldn't love. Like, when he did the Cybertruck announcement, I was like, oh man, that is
I saw that.
not the best presentation there. But what he's doing, I have mad respect for. Like, I think it's incredible, the stuff he's like literally has a car company that is revolutionary cars, and then he's also going to space, and then he's going into our brains. Like, how does he have
And he's going under. I think
he's
got
going
the
under the
tunnels,
ground. He's going
boring.
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know how he navigates time at all. Like,
Is it really him? Does he have? I mean, obviously he's got a team around him,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
But
Well, the most brilliant engineers in the world contact Tesla and go like, all right, I'm available. You know, like,
can I come
I
work
want to
for
come.
you?
I want to
work
come
for
do
you.
this stuff.
come figure that out.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly. Yeah. Like,
I like how, like, just like Taylor Swift, anytime somebody's great, we're always
Yeah.
like, yeah, but they got a great team around them. We don't want to give anybody that much credit.
Yeah, so
It's the team.
he created and sold PayPal. So what?
He had
And
a
then he
team.
just decided he's going to get into cars, and now he's in space. But it's got to be someone.
Yes.
I am below average, and I did it all by myself. God damn it! Nobody behind me. There's no team here.
all me.
This is all me.
Yeah.
And I don't understand half of this shit, right?
But then, yeah, you said you were a horrible employee and just got,
Yeah.
you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and then 23, you're like, I'm going to open my own company.
So I graduated, and the job market wasn't great. I got a job as a recruiter, and I was doing that for about a year and a half. I did IT recruiting for hospitals, actually, and I found that pretty fun because I got to talk to tech guys and interview for it and try and see, like, read social cues in terms of how they might be good at something. Because what you see a lot in engineering is they could talk the talk, but can they walk the walk? Like, they know the terminology, but can they actually do it?
Yeah.
So trying to dig in and ask the right questions, I found that was fun. It was kind of a strategy play though with that. But, you know, I knew it wasn't going to be a long-term thing for me. But when about, let's see, a year into the job, my partner today, he came across this opportunity where it was a local electrical company, a DP Electric. They're pretty big in Arizona. Yeah. And they were looking, he found out they were looking for a time tracking software. And he's like, I think we could do it. I think we could build it. And like, he calls me up and I'm like, are you sure? Like, that's a pretty big, they got hundreds of employees. Like, we're fresh out of college. You sure we could do it? He's like, yeah, we could do it, man. Come on, let's do it. So after work, we like started working on this pitch to go to, we knew the CEO through like family friends. And essentially we went and did a presentation, and we didn't realize that there was going to be 7 other companies there. We were waiting in line for the presentation. And every single company did time tracking software. They already had something.
They already
Yeah.
Right.
So we went in and we're like, we'll build it from scratch, and we'll build it just for you.
In our garage.
Exactly. Yeah. I know we're just a bunch of kids, but
Yeah.
we'll build it. And they gave us the chance.
Wow.
So we started building that. I would, come home from work and we would just start working on that. And it took a while. Yeah, and like the recruiter job, I was doing 12-hour days. So like it was long, and then coming home and still working, it was a lot. I was worn out. Yeah. And we made basically a pact where if we got another client, I would quit my job. And it just so happened that I got promoted. And then like a month after, they wanted to fly me out to Dallas to start a new department there. And it just so happened that right after that, we got a new client. And
So you pieced out of that
yeah,
thing.
I
Yeah.
pieced out. Yeah. They were, I remember telling my boss, and he was like, there's no way that you're leaving because of that. It's like, we must have done something wrong. What did we do?
Yeah. It's me.
It's definitely
It's me. Yeah. So that's how it started. And I mean, we were super scrappy. Like we would do anything we could to get a new client, and all of them were referrals. But I remember there was one point where we were not making ends meet, and we were trying to come up with ways. Like, I don't, I want to keep doing this. How can we keep going? And my buddy is like, well, I could just go get a job and we could split the salary. Because like engineering jobs paid pretty good money then.
You're like,
And
you
I'm
should.
I'm like, wait, what? You want to do that? Like,
Yeah.
And he ended up getting a job at American Express as a developer. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but he convinced them to work remote. And at the time, remote was not a thing.
No.
You didn't work remote. And he found a way to be able to do his job within like a day, like a full week's job in a day, and then spend the rest of the week working on our stuff.
Wow.
So.
And then just put his direct deposit towards the company to keep going.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's how it works.
So working remote is like on the table at some burrows right now. Well, I will say it was until he just told me that story. So
You could
sorry,
spend
guys.
one day
Thank
working-
Ryan Jacobs.
But also, but Tim, how long ago was that?
Gosh, that was 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a ton of productivity software and hours online and
Trello
keystrokes and there's all kinds of shit that you can do if you really want to monitor
To
it.
make sure they're not starting a software company on the side. Yeah.
I worry about, so, my guys are all outside sales, right? I'm like, that motherfucker's a realtor. I'm like, they're out there, go, I'm in Riverside today. I'm like, this my bitch is showing a fucking 4 and 2.
Four beds, two beds
He's showing a 4 and 2.
with a pool.
Yeah. God damn it.
Killing this thing.
But when those guys are commission based, like they got to.
Yeah, I mean, I know,
They're working.
we start with your productivity in terms of to your quota, right?
Right, yeah.
If you're 150% and a realtor, good for you.
Yeah. You do you.
You sure are an overachiever.
Do whatever you
Open
want.
house
Do it
on
right.
Sunday. Great job. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did so family friend? I get it. Is that the driving factor? Because you were in that room, and before you was ADP and Kronos and everyone else in there that was like, we've been doing this for 100 years, right? And we could just plug and play you guys into this system.
Yeah.
And then, oh, by the way, if you want to do the HR add-on because you haven't redone your handbook, and if you want to do this and if you want to do that, like, was it just like, let's give these kids a chance?
I think a lot of it was, I mean, at the time, a lot of the software sucked. Like, it was really bad. Like, ADP sucked at that time. It was just so antiquated. I think what they thought that was really appealing is that we could integrate into their process. So, like, it wasn't just like, we're going to track Bob's time. We're going to be able to give us the categories financially that you like to track, and then we can track his time individually to those categories. And at the time, that wasn't a thing. Like, they didn't do that. They just did clock in, clock out. And we were able to do that setup for them around their process where they could say, we want to track in this specific way. And then we experimented with like Bluetooth at the time, which wasn't a huge thing, where like someone could do a badge and clock in, clock out. Like, a lot of these things like seem simple nowadays, but it wasn't a big thing at the time. And they loved it. Like, they're like, oh my God, we can give our foreman like an iPad. Like, no one knew what to do with an iPad at that time. And it's like, wow, we found a use case, and they could clock in with that. And that was just really exciting for us. And honestly, like, I think we were more confident than we should have been, but it honestly helped a lot. It was a huge learning experience, and we realized everything we didn't know, and therefore we could work on knowing it. I actually heard something recently I really liked was every person, when they go into a new venture, they're like optimistically uninformed. They don't know what they're talking about, but they're optimistic.
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
And then when they get into it, they become pessimistic uninformed.
Yeah.
They're like, this sucks. This
Yeah.
is not what I thought it'd be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of the time, that's when people give up and they go on to the next thing, and they just continue that cycle over and over again. But if you can stick with it, I think the next phases are like you become pessimistic informed, and then you become optimistic informed. And that's when you
That's
can really
great.
start doing
So good.
things. I really like that. And I think if you can stick with it and get through that dip,
Yeah.
that's where you can do some really cool stuff.
How long does that take in tech for you?
I mean, it ranges. It could be years. It could be never for some people. But I felt like for us, like we had a pretty decent dip where we just didn't know what we're doing. There was a lot we needed to learn. So for us, I think it took us a solid 5 years to really get traction.
That whole cycle reminds me of we had Jonathan Buford, who's the founder of Arizona Wilderness Brewing, and he talked about their first location on Arizona Avenue in Guadalupe. He's like, talk about being optimistic and uninformed. He's like, that was a terrible location. Looking back, the kitchen was a
Kitchen
former
sucked,
Godfather's Pizza, and like, but we didn't know. But we were just so optimistic and passionate about what we were doing. We did it, and then we got in, and they got their ass handed to them for a while. But then they learned, and they became optimistic, and now they're thriving. And I mean, I think we can all think of so many times in our life that's kind of the cycle. But you got to get past that hump.
It's hard in corporate America. I mean, you got 30 employees, so you're starting to have a lot of responsibility, right?
Right.
When it was you and like two of your buddies just going like, all right, dude, go get that job. I'll quit. Like, I mean, that was like 3 of you in a room, right? Now you got 30 people whose lives are dependent on this. What I see is they don't even give it 5 years. And engineers, solution architects, solution engineers, which I'm around all day, every day, 2 years gone, 2 years gone, 2 years gone, right? And it's like, they made, 158, and then it was 178, then it was 208, and then it was 219, right? And then it was 248, and it was like, all right, I'm on my 6th one. What's the one for 300?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you just like, and they're brilliant and they can build things and they're intuitive and all of this other stuff. But that's, I mean, I can't find anyone that is 5, 7, 10 years in there. Are you, now that you have employees, are you experiencing that? Like now you're a business owner. It's not just writing code, right?
Yeah. It's honestly, it's very normal in the tech industry to like people just leapfrog, and that's how they get their salaries boosted. But I will say it's changing. Like I feel like the whole in a way there's been a tech bubble where Silicon Valley and now like interest rates are much higher. All that venture capital isn't there as much, so a lot of these companies are getting more lean. And that's been our thing from day one is we've always gone, we didn't raise any venture capital. We didn't want to raise all these funds and spend like there's no tomorrow. We wanted to be lean. We wanted to be profitable. We've always had a culture of long term. So every single employee that we've hired, we've tried to do this mindset of, this is the long haul. And if you stick with us, you will grow with us and you'll get a piece of it. So we do a profit sharing with our business. We've had some turnover, but honestly, we had a programmer that left us. He went over to Freshly, actually, worked there as a programmer, and then he ended up coming back. So that I felt like that was a good telltale sign.
Those boomerangs.
But you're right about all of the layout. I mean, Google, thousands, Amazon, thousands. I mean, they're out there and they are getting cut. And it's not $70,000 admins. It's $250,000 engineers that it's like, all right, the money's drying up. It's out. Like we gotta trim the fat, right, to get to profitability. So are you seeing a lot more talent that's out on the market right now?
There is more talent, but I think one of the problems is like, especially with engineers working with bigger companies, is they have a very limited scope of what they were working on. Like we'll talk to an engineer that spent 6 months working on a drop down, but it's a drop down that they use throughout all their software, and then it has all these different use cases, but they spent 6 months on the drop down. So like seeing all the different ways of how tech stacks have changed since then, they're kind of behind a little bit. With our projects, we get to expose our developers to all different things, different industries, different projects, all sorts of problems they've never seen before. Like every day is a new day. And I think that's kind of exciting.
Like that.
Yeah. It's a new problem that engineers are problem solvers. They love, they don't want to solve a problem that everyone and their mom has solved. They want something new. And that's something that's kind of cool with our business. Is we're always trying to kind of change the status quo or work on a project we've never seen before, or we'll bring in a client and we know nothing about this industry. This is a total new industry, and we have to learn how it works, and then build software around that process. So I think that's the part that's really exciting for us and our employees. So we've been able to keep our turnover pretty low because of that. It's not about, making that extra buck. It's about improving your skill set and making yourself more valuable. And in the long run with that loyalty, you get a piece of the profits, you get a piece of the growth. I think that's the true appeal with what
Is there a time where you're hunting like an engineer to come in for just one particular thing? We need an expert in this. Like you mentioned a drop down. Like I need somebody with experience right here, right?
Honestly,
or do you seems like you like these well-rounded?
Yeah, honestly, we don't typically do that. We don't hire for a specific project or a specific skill set. We mostly hire for people that are good problem solvers or good learners. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
If they can learn, then it doesn't matter what they know right now. They have the capacity to know it. A lot of times, like we'll come into a project comes our way, and a client might say, "Have you ever worked in this?" And we'll be like, "No, we haven't." And not a lot of people have. And if you do find one, you should hire them. But with us, we've seen such a wide range of problems, and we have a repertoire of things, solutions that we might be able to utilize that are similar to this. But it'll be a brand new problem, and we'll have to come in and try to learn something new or bring in a new set of technology and figure out how to integrate that. And that's a lot of fun. Yeah. That is a lot of fun.
The feather in your cap to how your origin story, right? Like, we've never done this,
but
we will.
We will.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
we'll make it better.
Figure it out.
Yeah,
One of the things he did in his spare time is they're constantly creating things for companies. So he created a bot for sombreros just for fun, and they fed it like our employee policies and manual and basically whatever we onboard people with, and then gave it to us basically. And we just of course, he starts asking it questions like, I'm a new employee. How do I meet Tim? And that's all it asks. And it's like, while Tim is happy to meet with any employee, he is a very busy man and would probably love to make time with you, but maybe you should just speak to your manager and say, it spoke just like a human. Then he's like, will Tim make me a burrito? Although Tim started in the kitchen, worked his way up in the family business, he does not have time to make you a burrito right now. And I'm like, we're not going to need me pretty soon, with this job.
Tim doesn't really exist anymore.
No, exactly. He doesn't. I don't have an office
Meet our
anymore.
bot automator, Tim.
One thing that I've had on my list that I wanted to have this discussion, and then I'll cue it up and then probably step out of the way. But we talked the other day at Top Golf about TikTok. Yeah. And how interesting it is. Nick is very popular on TikTok. 27,000.
27,000 is not that popular. 26,000 is not that popular.
But every time you talk about TikTok on the show or on the podcast, you're like, I don't if you like TikTok, if you don't, whatever, because it is a polarizing thing. Because it's a lot of people are like China. And then other people are like, but it's really cool and it's amazing and it sends me videos. And so we started talking about what it is about it. If you want to just speak kind of what we were talking about the other day, and then how it could possibly be damaging and why there's this backlash, but also why it's also doesn't mean it is damaging.
Yeah. Honestly, it's fun. The TikTok is fun. It's addicting. You see all sorts of videos, and it introduced this whole new way of interacting with social media that wasn't there before. Nobody was doing it. Now I feel like Facebook's picking up on it. You see Reels and Instagram, YouTube's doing it
Shorts.
now. Yeah, exactly. So it's coming around. I think the big thing that's controversial right now is that, it's a Chinese-owned company. So technically, the government can come in and tell them to do certain things, press certain agendas or take certain data. Now, there isn't clear evidence that is happening right now. But the possibility that could happen, I think that's what a lot of people are scared of. Mm-hmm. So I think the latest bill, it's about divesting TikTok. So basically, it would have to be owned by a U.S. company. in order for it to be allowed on an Apple App Store. Or
Because we have certain restrictions that they would have to then adhere to
Right,
and
exactly.
control that flow of information back and forth.
Exactly.
Where if it's not a U.S. owned company,
yeah.
they might not have those type of restrictions.
Right, and to
China.
flip it, I mean, China doesn't allow Facebook or Google or a lot of the big applications in China. They can't. They have no access to that because they're U.S. owned, and they kind of have the same mentality. And then TikTok is actually an app in China, but it's totally different.
Yes.
It's a totally different app. It's actually very educational, and it has all this content for kids to help in terms of education.
Science and
Where-
math and all kinds.
Yeah, where with the U.S., it's like, let's feed them all the junk and the
Yes.
dances
Guys
and
jumping
cat
off
videos.
buildings and talking cats and
Yeah. And there was some like debate on like they did some because TikTok is mostly geared for a younger demographic. Like if you ask a younger demographic certain political things, they'll be informed in different ways, and they are generally informed by TikTok. So if they're seeing videos about some subject with somebody that has this radical opinion and like they're pressing that, that's where they're going to get their kind of what we were talking about before. It's like where you're getting your truth. It's hard to determine. So that control, it's powerful. You don't know exactly how that's going to trickle out in culture. So I think that's the big debate. I think TikTok's awesome. Like it's a lot of fun and it's addicting. I have to rein it back. There's a lot of times where me and my wife will be sitting on the couch and we'll be sending each other reels back and forth.
Me and Tony do that all the time. All the time.
Yeah, it's a real relationship.
stealing that. Yes.
Do you have TikTok? I don't have it on my phone.
I don't. I don't need it's not because I'm afraid of people stealing my information. I just can't have another app that I get addicted to.
Same.
I already am capped on my addictions.
But when I send them an occasional TikTok, you could still click it and
Yeah.
watch it on. It just pulls up a web browser and you can watch the
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
anyone can
doesn't
watch
go.
Yeah.
No,
No,
you have to download
don't do
this
that.
application.
Right, yeah.
But that's the
So-
only time if you send me something. Or,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only time I ever see it. So.
Also, a great place if I don't want to talk to Chat GPT and I want to see someone do something. Sear a scallop.
Yep.
All you have to do is say seared scallops, and you'll have 1,000 choices to watch.
Seared scallop videos.
Yeah, seared scallop videos.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want to watch someone do.
Yes.
So sometimes I want to watch it, right?
Yeah.
I go, how do I do that?
And you get
Yes.
trends that you wouldn't normally see, like pop culture sort of things that I'm
Yes.
like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing, and
Yeah.
now I do.
Now
Where
I do.
if I went on Netflix, I would have never known that, or YouTube. I'm mostly searching for something that
Yep.
I want to watch, but this is like I'm getting things that I would never normally watch. And it's a way that you kind of feel like you belong. I think it's that type of feeling. It's like, I feel like it got big around like COVID time frame.
Oh,
We're
big
all
time.
stuck inside and we need something to do. And it felt like a way for us to be close together and doing those kind of short clip things and the fun dance videos.
yeah.
Things like that.
Is X or Twitter, is that still a thing?
Oh, big time. Yeah,
So,
big
okay.
time.
All right.
And Elon bought it so that he can, because he believed that they were restricting speech and restricting certain posts and
Which they
people.
were.
And
The
so
Twitter
he
files,
said, no, I'm going to buy it. I'll lose all of the money, and we're not going to restrict any of that.
Yeah.
And that was what he said.
Or I'll feed them my agenda.
Or
Or they'll hear my truth.
Yeah.
And,
Or they'll buy Tesla stock because I'm going to
Yes.
force that on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like with Twitter before, there was a lot of moderation where he has the exact opposite, where like no moderation unless it's super extreme. No. And a lot of people have a problem with that. Is like, do you
too much.
You're not moderating.
Yeah.
Like there's some bad stuff on here. So it's like finding that fine line is tough. Like he's a big, freedom of speech person. Like if you want freedom of speech, you got to be able to listen to the crazy people out there too.
Yeah.
So it is tough. It's a tough balance there. But
I deleted Twitter because I found, how just like I used to follow certain things, especially when Camden was in sports. I'd follow all the teams in his conference. Brian, you follow a lot of baseball players, whatever. And that's what like the kind of stuff I wanted to see. And then it starts sending you stuff that I don't want to see. And then next thing you know, I'm like watching fights at NFL stadiums. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, why did I just spend all this time watching it? And now I feel like gross because I just saw this guy get totally beat up. And so like, in fact, like these things are just like, I just want to follow the people I follow.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, but they're not that interesting. We need to send you this other cool stuff to keep you hooked.
Well, that's totally TikTok. The For You page. If you if you like a video, right? The next video, a lot of people don't even know this about TikTok. If you just hold your finger down on it, if you don't like it, you can say, I'm not interested, and here's why. It's using AI within their algorithm to just learn what you like. So after a few days, magically, everything that comes on there is just something that you're interested in.
So many seared scallops.
Dude, I can't. Do you know how many fucking times I've seen someone just dismantle a pork butt?
Be careful with that search, though.
Yeah.
Just dismantling butt.
Pork butt.
Yeah, it's just and then they put I like it when they have the microphone in there and they're just like, yeah.
You gotta get the sound.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best.
Old pork butt porn for Nick.
Yeah.
But you said we were talking about like how it could possibly TikTok be weaponized if like
Definitely could. Yeah, because again, you could feed it certain videos and it's learning what you like. You know, like for example, it could look at the videos that you're liking and disliking, but it also is monitoring how long you're spending on each video because it's so easy, just swipe. And if they swipe, that means, oh, they probably didn't like that. But if they watched the whole thing or if they watched it multiple times, that means they really liked it. So they're picking up on all that and storing that information. So figuring out what videos, if they want a certain agenda, they can then give you videos that could be attractive to you by giving you an agenda, but also putting it in a way that you would like it. You know, maybe, you know,
Like you said, with
pork
your AI.
butts with some type of
pork butts cooked by Donald Trump. And then
It's the best pork butt. I haven't seen a finer pork butt. But the creators that are on TikTok, like a lot of the chefs that have a social media team that do their videos, which I follow several of them, the ending of their video, if you're just watching the video, the words that they say at the end of the video then combine with the front of the video. So the front of the video, the guy comes on there and goes, the best pork butt ever. And at the end of the video, it says, and that's why I taught you how to make the best pork butt ever. And now you're watching it again.
damn.
And you don't even know that you're watching it again. You're like, dude, I just saw this.
Yes. And 30 minutes later, you've watched it 45 times, and you're like, wait a minute.
So they've hired the social media company that says, this is how you get more views and get into people's algorithm is they don't know when the end of your video is.
Yeah.
right.
Like,
Makes sense.
it's like, wow.
So at the end of this episode, we'll say, and people do yeah, we'll see if it works on Apple Podcasts.
We just got the new Apple VR headset that just came out, and we were playing around with the office, and it's awesome. It's crazy. It is weird to be talking to someone that's like wearing these goggles and you can't see their eyes. But you can see everything and you can walk around. We were playing ping pong with it on. Like it's that fat. And what's crazy is you're not actually seeing through it. It's a screen in there. So it's using cameras and it's just that fast that you can do stuff like play ping pong. And we were just talking about, we had this whole debate about how this could be implemented. And we were talking about, we think the craziest combo is going to be with, virtual reality. Well, I think Apple's calling it like spatial computing or something. But the combination of that and AI. So like we were doing all these different use cases of like, imagine let's say you're at a doctor's appointment and wearing these things, how straight that would be. But I feel like there's a lot of times where like there's certain things where you want to ask certain questions, but you're not in the moment to like actually think about those things. Like having AI there all the time and be able to see and hear everything you're doing and be able to process that live and then give you like almost like an assistant like perspective, or be able to show you something while you're viewing it. Like there was a use case of someone like working on their car, like trying to fix something, and then like they have a YouTube video of like explaining how to fix something, and they're going in and doing that and having it all on at the same time. Like being able to train any type of blue collar job or white collar job. There's so many implications with it. I think training and education is going to be really big with it.
And it's not going to look like that in 20 years either.
Yeah, it's
Look
gonna
like
be
sunglasses.
it's going to
yeah.
be sunglasses or contacts.
Yeah.
right.
Like Meta saying it could eventually be built into a contact lens
my God.
where you don't even know that it's happening, but it actually can project out in front of you the
Yeah.
YouTube video and the whatever. Like that's what they're
Do
working.
we want to
toward.
be around for that? Let me.
The movie experience is really cool. Like
Yeah.
it feels like you're in an IMAX theater
Yeah.
because it like blacks out everything. You just got this huge screen right in front of you, and sometimes it's like full immersive. Like they got this. They have like where they'll have like a famous singer sitting right in front of you. It looks like they're sitting right, and it looks like they're singing to you. Like concert experience like that.
Oh my
Just
God.
crazy.
Whoa.
And then there was like a sports I don't know if you guys saw this, where like you could be watching a football game, for example, and then it knows that you have a table in front of you, so you could put the football field on the table, and you could see the players running around. You could see the play from that view, like just crazy stuff like that. It's like you're experiencing it in totally different ways that you never thought could be possible.
Yeah. So about a month ago, so Tony, my son, has the first iteration of the Oculus.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So not the new one, but the older
Right,
one.
yeah.
Well, the NBA app on there, every day there's a featured game of the day, and they have a camera at the scorer's table that has an entire panoramic of the entire court. Okay. And then you just have to tell it where you're sitting, right? So that it can position you the right way. And my son's like, you want to watch the Bulls are playing the Portland Trailblazers? I'm like, yeah, I do want to watch that. And so he puts it on me, whatever, and I'm just sitting on the couch and I'm just watching the game back and forth. When a guy comes in to check in for the game and stands in front, or the ref stands in front, it goes to the camera of where the ball's at on the side above the rim. So now you're watching the whole play develop above the rim, whatever. So I'm literally just sitting there. I think I might have had a beer in my hand. I'm just sitting there, and then my son went upstairs. And I didn't know that he went upstairs because you can't see through these. So then I'm just like sipping my beer, and I'm like, dude, I can't fucking believe this, whatever. And I'm like, and then I said something like, my God, DeMar DeRozan just got blocked again. And I didn't realize that Danielle walked into the room. And she's like, and she didn't know I was watching the game. She's like, what are you doing?
There's worse things you can walk in on.
I was like, and then I lifted up. I just got red all over me. And I was like, what's up?
Hey.
I'm like, where did Tony go? And she's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, Tony was sitting next to me. I promise. She's like, but what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm watching a basketball game. She's like, what do you? The TV's not even on. What do you mean you're watching a bat? I'm like, it's on this thing. She's like, what do you mean it's on this thing? And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Here, try it on.
And as we get older, I want to be open to it because it's easy to just like you get to that phase and you're just like, nope, that's like for young people. But I'm kind of like, I'm right on the edge where I just don't know. Like, is it just for young people or do I have to learn it because that's going to be the future?
Yeah,
But
so I guess, I don't know. We got to be getting the time
we're
right
like
now.
way over.
Okay, but that's my last question is, I'm a huge fan of Gary Vee. I don't know if you know Gary Vee. And he says, I promote the technology with my kids. They're not going to run away from it, right? We have boundaries, but I'm promoting them to learn the right way to use it and whatever. Like, and you're talking software every day and looking at AI every day. You have young kids at home. Like, what's your plan?
Yeah. So one thing that I think is really interesting is we have no idea what to train our kids for. Like, because we have no idea what jobs are going to be like at that age, especially with AI coming out everywhere. So honestly, I think at this point, the only thing we could really focus on is teaching them how to learn and then also teaching them how to interact with this technology. And I already have my 5-year-old interacting with AI. Like so one thing he loves doing is trivia. So he will talk with AI and be like, I want to do trivia for a 10-year-old.
Yeah,
he's like, and then
He's
it
his
will,
father's son.
it's like, and it will give a question, and like half of them you'll know, but he loves doing that. So I think giving them exposure to that is valuable. Of course, like I don't like them going on YouTube and surfing forever and watching all this nonsense, but I think giving them exposure to the constant changing of technology, because like with my generation, I feel like we saw we saw the evolution of the internet. It wasn't a thing in our childhood, and then it suddenly was, and then the cell phone. And I think being able to adapt to all those things, you have to be able to do that, and it adapts so quickly now. So they're going to be constantly interacting with these things. So I feel like being able to give them that exposure, teaching them how to use it, using it in the correct way, I think that's all you can really do.
So do you look at our curriculum right now? Because you have to start looking at curriculum, and do you go, this is a fucking waste of time?
Honestly, the way I look at it is the curriculum. I don't care about the curriculum. I care about how they are going about and learning. I want to teach them a way to learn things faster. So it doesn't really matter what the school is teaching in terms of subject. I mean, within range. Right. Because I'm going to be teaching things to them on the side. But to me, it's about more of the work ethic. It's not exactly like, oh, they should be like they're learning cursive right now. Like, dude, are they actually going to use that? No. It's but the act of them learning something new, doing something like they just learned how to write letters. Now we're going to change it up on you. Like, here it goes.
Hey, remember those letters?
Yeah.
Fuck all that.
This is totally different now, and you're never going to use this except for signing things.
Yes.
So that I think that's important, is them to be able to adapt and change and quickly learn those things. Because really no teacher's going to know like what curriculum is going to be useful later. Like when the calculator came out, people were up in arms about this. Like, they won't know how to add. And like, some of us don't. But we at least have it.
And you know how to use a calculator.
We have a calculator. So there really isn't a strong need for that. It's about building that foundation where they can have common sense, where they can learn and process, and then utilize these other tools to be able to do the really powerful stuff.
That's so interesting.
The joke that comes up every tax season is, so glad that I learned parallelograms for parallelogram season.
Yes. So important.
Yeah. I don't know what taxes are, but I got that A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
That drives me crazy that there isn't a tax class. How is that not a thing? That makes no sense.
But also,
they change
isn't
the
it
rules every year?
Do you look at the governments that, like, I think it's funny. The IRS is like, you owe us. We're not going to tell you exactly how much. You're actually going to probably have to hire someone in order to tell you. And if they're not right, you're still responsible for it. We'll tell you after you tell us what you think it is. Do you look
if you're
at
really wrong, you go to jail.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And do you look at those and go, dude, if they just let me and my team in there for like 6 months, I can fix this shit?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, this is interesting. I just found out that income taxes actually weren't implemented in the U.S. till like 1918 or something like that, which is pretty wild. Like,
so we were around for a while.
Most of the U.S. In existence didn't have income taxes, which is pretty weird.
Those were the days.
Yeah, you think that that's a normal thing today.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was just, we only did it to fund World War I. And then World War II happened. And then I think the government was just like, well, they're already used to paying it, so let's keep it going.
It's like football dues.
But it is like, it's completely inefficient. I mean, it's crazy the government operated without that giant source of income before, but now it's like, I just feel like there's inefficiencies not only in the IRS, but across
everywhere.
the entire board, where I feel like if it really got lean, like, I feel like what's happening in Silicon Valley needs to kind of start happening in the government.
They better worry.
Sure.
They better worry about AI.
Yes, I think he maybe wanted to be a president at some point in his life, and
well, you memorized
after
them
he
all.
rules the world with his software company, I'm hoping he can be the first young guy to actually go in there and just shake things up. So
I'm not sure.
I'll run for Gilbert Mayor. I'll run for Gilbert Mayor, and you become the
all right.
You
the Reid Jacobs.
Yeah, we reform Gilbert.
Reid Jacobs 38.
I like it.
All right, guys, this has been fun. We learned a lot.
We did.
Yeah, we learned.
I don't know if you seem terrified by it. But.
Yeah, well, I'm just worried about this.
He got to play devil's advocate today.
Yeah, he tried it. He tried it. You can't measure someone's heart.
I tried that.
Like
pickles and gravy.
That's where I'm at. Pickles and gravy.
Yeah, there you go.
Just the SAS talking to the API. I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, look at that. He fits right in.
All right, we're out of here. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
Oh, now give me just a little bit, and I don't need a lot. Open up your heart, show me what you got. Sugar taste sweet coffee. Give me just a little bit. Give me just a little bit. I don't need a lot. Open up your heart. Show me what you got. Sugar taste sweet coffee.